Good afternoon, folks. How are you today? We are in week 3, lab number 3. I would like you to prepare this lab number 3 template. Name the workbook lab3.xlsm and name your worksheet parametric. So this is what your top header would look like. So here is our problem. This time, instead of having a cylindrical trough, we have a spherical trough. So we have a sphere which has some water in it, and we are interested in finding the height of the water. So when we look at this, the area of this tank, I'm sorry, not the area, the volume of water in the tank is given by this first equation. And of course, we know the volume of the tank is 4/3 pi r cube. So if we take the ratio and define it as alpha, how much is percent or fraction of water in the tank, pi and pi will cancel out and we will end up with this equation. So in this we can see that we have this ratio h over r. So if we define this ratio as our unknown x, then we can write this equation as 3/4 x square, 0.75 x square, minus 1/4 x cube, 0.25 x cube, minus alpha. If we subtract alpha from both sides, we will get equal to 0. So we want to find the root of this equation, positive root of this equation, when alpha is in the range 0 through 1. So alpha is our parameter and x is our unknown. X goes from 0 to 2. I would also like you to type in a VBA module which has two functions in it. One, the function whose root we want to find, and other is to find delta x through secant method. So we had spoken about it in a lecture in the previous week, or lecture 7 probably. So just to show you, go to developer tab, Visual Basic, and you have this module 1 which should have these two functions. Notice again this function has 2 arguments and secant has 4 arguments. Okay, let's begin by naming cells. So this is our first guess. We'll name it x1. Name this x2. We want 4 significant digits in our answer. Name this eval. And we are going to iterate to do our parametric study. So name it iterate. Always a good idea to go in formulas, name manager, and make sure you have the 4 names and they have proper values. Okay, so we begin by giving values. So let's say we are solving for 0.05. That's why I chose 0.05 and 0.1 as my guess. If iterate is equal to false at the beginning of the iterations, our first guess is x1. Otherwise, when we are iterating, we are going to pick in this x2 value. For x2, if iterate is false, use x2. Otherwise, we'll take the latest x new value, which becomes x2. So we'll compute the function at x1 comma alpha. function f2 at x2 comma alpha. And remember what we did in lab 2, we said we can only use that function if f1 is not equal to f2. Then we can use dx secant, and we have 4 arguments: x1, x2, f1, f2. Otherwise, dx is 0, delta x is 0. X new is x2 minus delta x. And then absolute of delta x divided by x. Is it less than equal to eval? And we have not converged. Okay, so we change iterate to true, and we get this error. We know about this error because we have formulas. We have x2 in terms of, we have x1 in terms of x2, x2 in terms of x new, which was already in terms of delta x and x2. So we have all kinds of circular references. So we say, okay. And we go to File, Options. In Options, we go to Formulas. In Formulas, we go to this Calculation options, change from automatic to manual. Make sure we don't recalculate. Enable iterations, set maximum iterations to 1. Set maximum change to some small value, 1 e minus 100. Say OK. So now whenever we need to calculate, we need to press F9 function key. So I'm going to press F9, and you can see 0.1 moved here, 0.49 moved from there to here, and now we have done 2 iterations. So press F9 again, 3 iterations, 4, 5, 6, 7. On 7th iteration, it converges. So we know now that our system is working. So let's reset it, set it back to false. Press F9. So we are back to where we were. So now we are going to set up our entire table. So we are going to set up equal to previous cell plus 0.05. We are going to do parametric study in steps of 0.05. Then for the next one, we are going to say if iterate is equal to false, we need a initial guess. So we'll pick it up from previous row. But once we are iterating, we'll pick it up from the current row. Same thing for x2. If iterate is equal to false, we are going to pick it up from the previous row, otherwise from the current row. And that's it. Notice we just typed, these were our new formulas. So we are going to copy these one row down, and then we want to go all the way up to alpha of we have to go up to 1, so we'll go up to 0.95. Notice it did not recalculate, so I'm going to press F9 just to see where I am. And I want to copy up to row 26. So press F9 key. So we are going from 0.05 to 0.95. So we are going to test the setup. Before we test the setup so that our values look decent, we are going to make all the alpha values 2 digits. All x values, so these are 2x values. We have, these are x values to 5 decimal digits. Function values to one significant digit. Oh, one digit, sorry, one scientific digit. Scientific decimal digit, okay. All right, we'll press F9 key just to be sure. Change iterate is equal to true. Of course, we did nothing. So now when we press F9 key, second iteration. Notice already this has converged here. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. On seventh iteration, first one converged. Probably it was not a very good guess if our root was around 0.27 and we were giving a guess around 0.05. Okay, so we have seen after 7 iteration, everything has converged. So let's put a method output box. And we will say converged in 7 iterations. So let's do some alignment issues, some formatting. So that's kind of how it looks. All right, let's do a plot. So we want to plot alpha versus our solution. So let's select X new. Then we want to go in insert XY scatter and we want, say, a plot with points and smooth curves. Okay, so we have our plot and we are going to move this chart to a new sheet and then you can format it. I'm not going to go over all the formatting step, but as I said, you start with adding chart elements, adding the title, putting the labels, formatting the axes, making sure everything looks the way you want it to. And then we are pretty set. We are going to name this as our plot. So check all of your formatting. Let's check print setting. So let's see print. So it looks nice. Everything fits nicely on a page. Let's check about our spreadsheet. Print. We don't have grid lines, etc. So make sure that you have grid lines, etc. Everything fits on a page. So fits one page, grid lines, row column headers. Make sure your file name is lab3.xlsm. You want macro enabled workbook, and you can submit it in the Dropbox. Here is the grading rubric. So you can make sure that you have every element here. And this is really the very minimum that I am asking. You should perhaps maybe add a reflection of what you learned from this lab. Anyway, have a great day. Take care.